Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It's 2 p.m. local time, and we are here in New York, and we are going to get started in a few minutes. While we wait for everyone to log on, we want to learn a little bit more about you, our audience. So please tell us via the chat box where in the world you're joining us from, and maybe where in the United States you hope to do your internship. If you aren't sure yet, just tell us what type of internship you hope to find. I'll start. My name is Fatima Rodriguez, and I'm the Communications and Recruitment Coordinator here at InterExchange. And I wanted to introduce you to my colleague who will be presenting today's webinar topic, Developing in-Demand Skills.
Hi everyone, my name is Tammin Nicholson. I am the Program Manager for the Career Training USA program at InterExchange. I'm currently based in New York. I'm not currently looking for an internship, but when I was in university, I did 2 internships here in New York in nonprofit event management, research internship, and I also did a sports management internship in Massachusetts.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, so we have a few coming into the chat. We have Kim from Vietnam. She's hoping to find an internship in Los Angeles. We also have another one. We have Oliver from France, who's also hoping to come to the US. He's unsure where he wants to find an internship, what city he wants to go to. And we also have another one. We have Callum from England, who is also really interested in coming to New York for an internship as well. We also have another one from here. I'm sorry, I'm not really sure how to pronounce your name, Bajerzon. He's from Poland, and he's looking to have an internship in Boston. So I think that might be everyone on the line, but just a quick note. Due to the size of the audience, everyone is going to be muted, but you can use the chat feature to ask any questions that you may have throughout the presentation. Additionally, this session is being recorded, and everyone who is registered will get a copy of this session. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with InterExchange, we are a cultural exchange organization based in New York City. Our mission is to enable global experiences by assisting students and young professionals from overseas to partake in cultural exchange programs in the United States, and also to help US students and young professionals experience programs in other countries as well. So within InterExchange, the Career Training USA program works with those seeking to undertake internships and trainees in the US. So for that reason, today we're going to discuss developing in-demand skills for an international internship. Oh my gosh, oops, sorry. Sorry about that, the technical difficulties. It just kind of switched for some reason. But to continue, this is our second career guidance webinar in a series of 10 that will take place every Tuesday at this time. And over the next few months, we'll be discussing a range of relevant topics from interviewing to US workplace culture to developing a professional online presence. So if you haven't already, I would definitely encourage you to take a look at the remaining schedule and sign up for any sessions that interest you. Additionally, since it is the start of the school year, for many of you, we know that many prospective interns are using this time to hone their skills and make themselves more competitive for future internships. And for that reason, we want to provide you with some tips and guidance for developing in-demand skills in the upcoming school year. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tammin, who's going to go through the outline of this presentation, what to expect.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Fatima. So today we are going to talk about soft skills and hard skills, what they are and the differences between those 2 types of skills. We're going to discuss how to develop in-demand skills. We'll talk about some specific resources for developing these skills, maintaining the skills. We'll do a wrap up with some key takeaways, and then we do have some dedicated time for questions and answers at the end. But if you have any questions, we have some pauses built in. And if you did submit any questions with your registration, we've woven those into the presentation and we'll be addressing those as we go through this presentation over the next hour. So with that, I want to start by differentiating soft skills and hard skills. This slide contains the attributes of soft skills. Soft skills are non-technical or transferable skills. They are things like project management and time management. For instance, you could dramatically switch careers, maybe from data science to fashion design, for example, and still have the skills that a host employer might find desirable. And that's because these skills are not directly work-related. They're gained through a variety of experiences and help develop our behaviors, personalities, our interpersonal skills. Soft skills inform things like emotional intelligence, like communication abilities. They're less tangible and they are harder to teach, which makes them more difficult to measure. So getting along with others, listening well, engaging in small talk, these are all different types of soft skills. And as you might imagine, soft skills vary across cultures. The skills needed to successfully interact with colleagues, to solve problems, to manage your work, that might be different in the United States versus your home country. It might also be different from one host employer to another. A majority of the workplace culture shock that J1 interns and J1 trainees experience when they come to the United States typically stems from this misalignment of soft skills at their current organization versus some past organization. So it's important now to stop and talk about what those are and how those might be valuable in the States. Okay, so why are soft skills important? I think first and foremost, hiring managers actively seek candidates with soft skills because they make someone more successful in the workplace. Nearly every job or internship requires employees to engage with others in some way. And you might see soft skills defined on an internship posting as interpersonal skills, essential skills, non-cognitive skills. These are all different ways that employers refer to soft skills. Either way, host organizations are looking for candidates who have that ability to thrive within their organization, as well as someone who has the technical know-how to do the job. And that's why in most interviews, you'll be asked these situational questions. For instance, tell me about a time when you faced an issue working in a group is a very common interview question. And we'll talk more about answering these questions in the interview tips webinar in a couple weeks. But for now, I think it's important to know the context of why a host is asking you those questions. And they're asking you for your situational response because they want to see about the non-technical aspects of your previous experience. They want to make sure that you are a well-rounded candidate who will have the skills to thrive within their organization. Another reason hiring managers look for applicants with certain soft skills is that they're transferable skills and they can be used regardless of your actual job. And this makes candidates very adaptable. If a project concludes early or a new initiative is being undertaken, someone with those appropriate soft skills, they're going to be able to step in and help the organization or the department succeed. Soft skills are very important in customer-facing positions. It takes sufficient soft skills to be able to listen to a customer and to provide that customer with helpful and polite feedback and service. Some examples of soft skills include adaptability, communication, creative thinking, dependability, teamwork, time management, problem solving, critical thinking. The list is actually very, very long, but those are probably some of the most common ones that I wanted to include and make sure that we chatted about here. Those are all skills that you might not see on a job description, but are very important to thriving in an internship in the United States or even in your home country. So let's talk about hard skills and compare the two. Hard skills, on the other hand, they focus on your practical abilities and your technical knowledge. Employers can get a really strong idea of your hard skills just by looking at your certifications, your education, your previous experience. Hard skills are the technical knowledge and experience that are essential to a specific internship function or a specific industry. For example, you can't be an accountant without an understanding of accounting fundamentals. You can't intern in an English-speaking business if you don't have sufficient knowledge of English. So those are two examples of important hard skills that inform the internship that you might be able to do. Hard skills are gained through intentional study and coursework or related experiences. They're objective, meaning that once you learn the information or task, you then clearly possess that skill. And because of that, hard skills are easier to assess. Going back to the accountant example, someone who has passed a CPA exam has the hard skills to be an accountant, or if they have a certain TOEFL score, they have a certain level of English speaking ability. With some exceptions, hard skills are usually static across cultures. So the hard skills that you would gain in computer science coursework or internships in Italy or Vietnam, they should have the same utility as the hard skills that you would gain in the United States, as long as the teaching and the mentorship quality is the same. So why are hard skills important? Hard skills are important for the same reason that soft skills are important. Employers seek candidates with the appropriate hard skills. They are job specific and they're typically listed right in the internship posting and the descriptions. They're vital to the posted position because they demonstrate that you as a candidate, you have the expertise, the ability, the knowledge to thrive in that position. Employers look for recruiters, employers look to recruit those who have hard skills in their professional resumes and in their applications. And these refer to your proficiency in completing complex tasks. They're skills acquired through formal education and training programs, maybe past internships or apprenticeships, short-term training classes, online courses, maybe a certificate program, on-the-job training, any hard skill that you reference on your resume from one of those past experiences, you should be able to back up with a certificate or a degree or some type of qualification that shows a certain level of achievement. That's because the levels of competency in these type of skills, they typically follow a direct path. So you might have a design 101 course and then an intermediate design course and then an advanced design course, and it shows the trajectory of your learning of that hard skill. Maybe it's the number of years you've been working with a certain type of software. These are different type of qualifications that will validate your expertise in hard skills. And they show that you have a relationship to the industry and to the internship posting that you're seeking. It demonstrates your experience and also your value added that you'll be able to bring to the company, because these are complex tasks that the host wants to make sure that you have refined, or maybe they can help you refine through this training, but they want to make sure that you already have that foundational element to some of those hard skills. So now we've defined these two different sets of skills. I want to discuss the importance of each and how they are complementary. I think we can all call to mind someone we know who is great at their job, but not someone who you'd ever want to work with. And vice versa, I think we can think of someone who has very strong interpersonal skills, but isn't very good at their job. And having both of those skills are important because employers look for someone who they can depend on to carry out a task and work with as part of their team and work with as part of their organization. And this will be a theme throughout the entire career guidance series, but you want to pay attention to the language in an internship description when you're applying so that you can demonstrate that you do have the appropriate skills they're looking for and that you are the perfect internship candidate. The main difference between hard skills and soft skills is that hard skills can usually be taught through a series of concrete steps. Maybe from an instructor or a supervisor's perspective, teaching someone how to code a computer program is a more easily defined process than teaching them how to empathize or to listen and communicate effectively with a client. Soft skills typically can't be learned by rote practice. They involve a certain level of emotional intelligence, which makes them more complicated to impart, and it's harder to sometimes learn that as a student. And this is why international internships have so much value. We talked, if you attended last week's session, about the requirements for the J1 intern and the J1 trainee programs. And these require that all participants have a baseline level of hard skills related to their internship. And that's why you have to have at least 1 year of professional work experience as a trainee or at least 1 year of coursework as an intern. But routinely during our application review, we talk to interns who they have these hard skills and they're coming to the United States to advance some of the soft skills like adaptability or flexibility or maybe just stepping out of their comfort zone, things that are innately exercised by putting themselves in a new environment, in a new country. I think the bottom line that I want to talk about in this slide is that both hard skills and soft skills are important to your career readiness. And once you have the foundation in both, you'll be able to be a desirable and excellent candidate in the real world. I know this is a lot of information to just start out with because I want to set a good tone about the differences. And I do want to pause for questions here. I think we've had a couple that I can see the marker that have come in. So before we go any further, Fatima, do we have any questions we should stop and address here?
Yes, we have two questions that came through. The first question is, which types of skills are more important to practice for J1 Career Training USA interns?
It's a great question. I think that practicing of skills will be more important for soft skills because, like I said, some of those hard skills are going to be the same. If you're in a different country, you might still have a specific baseline of accounting or of computer programming, but working in a new type of environment might require a different level of communication or emotional intelligence. So practicing some of those softer skills, not that hard skills aren't important, but soft skills could be the difference between you moving past the interview stage and a host employer saying, you know, they have the skills, but they're just not a good fit for the organization. So I would practice both, but I think in an international internship, having the soft skills is something that's going to be very important to stay attuned with.
And what soft skills are important for architects?
I like the specificity of that question. I think if you're an architect, some of the important soft skills that I would think about considering is customer service, communication, maybe flexibility. And not all projects are always going to follow the same 18-month plan to build a building. And if things change, are you able to roll with the punches? Can you come up with a backup plan? So making sure, I think this is probably good advice for anyone in the STEM fields, making sure that you can think critically and think outside the box when you need to.
Awesome. That is all the questions that we have so far.
Great. So on the next slide, I want to test everyone's ability to identify hard skills versus soft skills. So we have a little quiz that we've set up here, and we'll give you all a few seconds to think about. You can type in the chat box, you can think it to yourself, but is cloud computing a hard skill or a soft skill? And we'll reveal that in maybe 3, 2, 1. So it's a hard skill, and I hope that that made sense. Cloud computing is something that you're taught through your cloud computing courses. It's something that's going to be maybe more specific to certain industries. If you're in the PR world, maybe cloud computing isn't necessarily a hard skill that you need to work on. Let's go to the next one. So creativity. I think I might have given this answer away earlier, but is creativity a hard skill or a soft skill? 3, 2, 1. So it is a soft skill. You could be creative in the fashion world, creative in architecture, creative in the business world. There's a lot of areas where creativity is an important skill that transcends industry and is important to specific areas in businesses. Let's do one more. So third one is sales. So is sales a hard skill or a soft skill? 3, 2, 1. So sales is a hard skill, and we did this as a poll in our last time that we ran the session, and we had, I think, close to 50-50. A lot of people thought sales was a hard skill, others thought it was a soft skill. So by definition, sales is a hard skill. We include this example not to trick anyone, but to reinforce the idea that a lot of hard skills can only be achieved after you have a strong foundation in certain soft skills. So if you don't have the ability to persuade people, to communicate with people, to understand, empathize their point of view, you're not going to be able to have the hard skill of sales. So while it is a hard skill, it's built up of a lot of smaller soft skills that actually make this a hard skill. So on the next slide, we are going to talk about the most in-demand skills overall, according to the 2020 LinkedIn survey. But we want to hear from you all. It's always a lot of fun to think about the different fields that you're all seeking internships in. So now that we've talked about hard and soft skills, please share with us in the chat field what field you are seeking an internship in, and maybe what you think are the most important hard or soft skills in your specific field or industry. So we'll go through the next slide, and then any responses that come in, we will read from you all and share with the group. So let's talk about these top in-demand skills, and we'll start with the soft skills in the first column. The first is creativity. Creativity, according to LinkedIn, is the most in-demand soft skill. It can't be taught in school, it's hard to measure, and someone with this expertise in one industry can easily move to another industry. And the reason this is so crucial to hiring managers is someone with creativity, they can generate original solutions for a company or for a department. It's an incredibly valuable skill in every employee, regardless of the position, the company, the industry, even the country. The second most in-demand soft skill is persuasion. This goes back to what we were talking about on the last 2 slides ago about sales. This is convincing others that your method or idea is the best in order to build a consensus. It's an important form of communication that leads to decision making, and it's a very valuable soft skill that many leaders possess. The third on the list is collaboration. We talked earlier about working with others, and this is one of the most important skills in order to successfully work with others. Collaboration is efficiently and effectively working to achieve a common task. The fourth on the list is adaptability, and this is the ability to thrive in an ever-changing environment. I think that has been well documented over the last year and a half that it's important to be able to face challenges and figure out ways to adapt in order to find a solution to some of those challenges. The last soft skill on this top list is emotional intelligence. This is directly related to interacting with your colleagues and your teammates. It's the ability to understand and respond to your emotions and the emotions of others that you're working with to placidly lead and help to manage different projects. So these 5 skills are harder to teach, and people intentionally work to develop or improve those skills their entire lives. There's many resources that exist to help you add on to these skills and better hone these skills throughout your lifetime, and we'll talk a lot about those resources in the second half of this presentation. The hard skills on the right column are a bit different. It's not necessary to obtain all 10 skills because they are specific to application in certain fields and industries. Depending on your field of training, maybe none of these skills are useful or required. And we're going to talk more about the skills gap on the next slide. But not all of these skills are going to be useful to every internship, so I would be careful to weigh which, if any, actually apply to your areas of study. I think supply has a huge impact on the demand for these skills, and many of these skills are in demand because so few people in certain industries have them. But blockchain skills are in demand because so few people have the skill set, and cryptocurrencies and digital assets are becoming more and more utilized in various industries. So keep that in mind as we talk about which skills you should work on developing. If there's a useful hard skill in your industry that very few people have, it's certainly worth refining that skill. But looking at the top 10 skills in the right column, I do see a few general themes. I think technology, brand management, data analysis, all of these skills fall into some of those buckets. So if you're still in university, it's the perfect time to learn and develop skills related to those themes, and make sure you're intentional about the courses you take. Make sure you're intentional about the certifications you pursue, and be smart about managing your spare time. Be vocal in your internships about what you hope to learn and the skills that you want to take away from your time, whether in the United States or in your home country. So with that, Fatima, what does our audience think? What are some of the skills that they think are relevant to their specific industries?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Antoinette from Jamaica. She believes that soft skills of like customer service is really important in the architecture industry. I'm guessing because they have to work so closely with different clients. We also have Wayne from Poland, who is in the field of business, and he really believes that sales is one of the most important hard skills in that industry. And then lastly, we have Aaron in the UK. Didn't specify what industry, but he believes that flexibility is also another really important skill to have.
Excellent. It's nice to hear the diversity of the areas and skills. And there are so many different skills out there, and they all do tie together. So going back to that idea of supply and demand that I talked about just now, earlier in the year, Wiley Education Services surveyed employers and asked which skills are the hardest right now to fill in their company. These are US employers, and this chart shows the top 12 most popular responses. And as you can see, it's a mix of hard and soft skills, with computer technology, critical thinking, and communication as the top 3. So this shows the difference in what companies have in their employees and what they need. And this is what is commonly referred to as the skills gap. The term skills gap, it just talks about that mismatch between the skills that employers rely upon and the skills that employees, interns, and job candidates actually possess. And the skills gap isn't necessarily going to be closed by university coursework alone. I think universities don't have the ability to be as nimble and develop new programs and new courses as quickly as host employers would want. So in order to achieve the requisite skills, candidates need to access skills that are in demand in other ways. And this is through practical experience, it's through internships, maybe a digital boot camp, or working on projects or volunteering your time. And we'll get into all of those specific mechanisms to develop skills very shortly. But I think I just wanted to pause and talk about what the skills gap is, because I think many people hear that term and it refers to many different types of skills. And another thing I wanted to highlight, I thought this was interesting, that 2 of the top 12 skills that are seeing the largest gaps are communication and hard communication. And this goes back to what we talked about sales. So communication being a soft skill, but hard communication being a hard skill of writing press releases, delivering presentations, being able to communicate the nuts and bolts that an organization needs someone to do. So that's another great example of soft skills leading to a different type of skill that is something that's related to a specific industry. Okay, so we've talked about so many different skills in the last half hour. So you might be thinking, what do I do if I don't have these skills? And I think my first piece of advice is to relax. Soft skills in particular are something you can work on at any point in your life. If you've been working for a while, chances are that you've already developed some soft skills. And for example, if you've had a job in retail, you've probably worked in a team environment, or you've helped unhappy customers find a solution. You've used conflict resolution and problem solving skills. But if you're totally new to the field of work, think about other activities that you've done, either through school or on a volunteer basis. Chances are that you've had to communicate, you've had to adapt to changes, you've had to solve problems at some point in your past. If you really think that you don't have any of these soft skills, you'll need to figure out a way to intentionally put yourself in a position to practice these interpersonal skills. And this is difficult, and it will get easier as you practice more and more over time. But things like part-time jobs, joining clubs, joining sports teams will teach teamwork and leadership skills. These are all important ways to set yourself up to develop interpersonal skills. So hard skills, on the other hand, are something you, like we mentioned, typically develop in the classroom. But the idea of a classroom is more and more versatile. So online courses, training academies, workshops, there's many ways to develop skills even after you've graduated. If you're working in a field not related to your studies or outside your target industry, you might have to be more proactive in constantly developing these skills in your free time. You might need to prioritize focusing on video production versus looking at your social media or watching Netflix in your free time after work. The key to any successful internship is having a foundation of skills. So you don't need to be a master of all of these skills when you apply for your internship. Remember that internship programs exist for you to refine and sharpen your skills. And developing skills is learned through participation, through learning, through networking, keeping in tune with current events, developing your knowledge base. So don't think that you need to be an expert now, but it is certainly helpful to finding an internship position if you have that foundation of skills. So we're gonna, from here, go into some specific ways to develop skills. We have 6 different areas that we have highlighted. One of the most popular ways to gain skills right now is through online courses. So these might be free, they might require payment. They are in a variety of different areas. Free websites are typically referred to as MOOCs. These are massive online open courses, or massive open online courses. These are online courses aimed at an unlimited participation and open access via the web They're typically free for you to audit, but some might require payment if you'd like to receive a certificate at the end, or maybe access to all of the modules. I've included a few of the more popular sites here. So LinkedIn Learning, or Lynda's, now part of LinkedIn Learning, Skillshare, edX, Coursera, FutureLearn, Udacity. These are all very popular sites that you've probably seen at least advertised somewhere. They are very likely course specific, and there's also hard skills in fields like architecture or civil engineering. Online trainings are great for 2021 because you can access the knowledge of industry experts and complete these courses from the comfort of your own home. On your own time, you don't have to go anywhere. You can just plug in and start learning. In cases like LinkedIn Learning, once you complete a course, you can even post it to your LinkedIn profile. In 2 weeks, Fatima will present it by your online presence, but it's a great way of tying together the skills that you've developed and showing people via your social media like what you've done and the skills that you do possess. There's also online curriculums like DataCamp, Pluralsight, Code Academy, and these allow you to practice some more analytical and computational skills. They're paid services, but you can practice with some real life tools that a lot of hosts are using. And we talked about how data analytics is becoming more and more popular, so you can practice with Python, with JavaScript, with R, with some of these important services that companies are using in real life. So depending on your career field, some of those websites might be very useful. There's many great online course websites out there. So if there's any that I'm missing or you want to share with the audience, again, put them in the chat box and we'll make sure that everyone knows about them either in the follow-up email we send, or we'll shout them out here in this webinar. So the second resource I want to highlight is podcasts. I'm a big fan of podcasts, but I think this is another easy way to gain some skills. You can find podcasts on pretty much any topic imaginable, including instruction on how to develop many in-demand skills. Most podcasts usually have a guest speaker who will provide some insight, plus some analysis and content from the host. And as you might or might not know, the beauty of a podcast is you can multitask while you listen. So you can develop skills while you're in the car, while you're grocery shopping, while you're just completing your everyday tasks. This is an incomplete list of some potential podcasts that you might want to check out to build skills. And I've also highlighted some specific episodes that might be useful. So there is Life Kit, which is a podcast that is short episodes that are wide-ranging about many topics and kind of helping you throughout life. And they have an episode about starting your career after college that I think is worth a listen to for many people on this call. TED Podcast is a umbrella of many different sub podcasts, but they have a lot of different resources there. And another episode they have is the human skills we need in an unpredictable world. And that talks a lot about skills that people have developed over the last year and a half since the pandemic began, and how people have these skills being important to pivot and transition into different areas. The Entrepreneurial Thought Leaders series is run by the Stanford Speaker Series in the United States and provides in-depth lectures from people in specific fields. Another great podcast is the Inforium. It used to be the College Info Greek podcast. It's in-depth, actionable advice. It was initially just for college students, but they've graduated to a wider ranging audience of people and wider ranging audience of topics. Great episode to listen to is how to become a critical thinker, especially for anyone who's thinking about developing some soft skills. Another interesting podcast is how to be awesome at your job. This is more of a workplace productivity podcast. So this will talk a little bit more about time management and how to just organize all of your thoughts, and how to persuade through better listening and adapting, I think, is one of their better podcasts. And you can, again, focus on some of those important soft skills that employers have identified as crucial. There's also many industry-specific podcasts out there. One I can think of specifically is Soft Skills Engineering, which is a podcast specifically for engineers to help them develop soft skills. So whoever asked that question about architecture, that might be a podcast worth checking out. So the third area to develop skills is going to personal development workshops. So usually these are done in person, but most, if not all, have figured out some model to transfer online. Some job skills workshops, like sales workshops, they also cover these soft skills as a foundational element. They may discuss skills that job seekers should have and the importance of highlighting on your resume. These workshops can last for a few days, or they can extend over a few weeks as part of a certificate program. It's a really good option if you feel like you wouldn't be able to motivate yourself to learn on your own to develop some skills, because there is accountability if you're part of one of these workshops. Depending on the length of the program, these workshops could be expensive. As with any paid service, InterExchange doesn't endorse any of these programs specifically, but these are just a few examples of some of the training institutes that are out there. If you're interested in a professional development workshop, I think the next best step is to look at the course topics and the reviews of some of these personal and professional development agencies to see if they match the needs that you've addressed in your own skills assessment. The fourth area is attending conferences. So conferences are another great way to gain skills. This is a strategy you might need to alter for 2021 and even 2022, but again, there are many conferences that have moved to virtual formats. I don't want to provide too many specifics here because so many fields, they have their own industry conferences, but there are generally two different types of conferences. First are leadership conferences, and this is where people in various fields can come together to discuss some transferable information. An example of a leadership conference might be the Leadership Summit for Female Entrepreneurs, or Forbes has an Under 30 Summit. So these conferences will give you the chance to hear from experts across a variety of different fields, maybe even meet some of these experts, and helps you to develop your network and to gain a better sense of some of those transferable skills that could be really important to your career development. Industry conferences are, for the most part, probably going to give you more insight into the hard skills that people in your industry want. You might have to infer a little bit from the sessions about what those skills might be, but if the same software keeps coming up in every session, you'll know that's an important software to become familiar with. And then many conferences, regardless of whether they're a leadership conference or an industry conference, they have pre-conference workshops where you can practice related skills. They have poster sessions where you can talk to experts who've maybe done research on certain topics to discuss their focus and their research background, trade shows and exhibition halls where you can also meet and learn more about the key players in your industry and help to develop your network. Some even have career booths where you can gain some resume advice and meet potential other members in the industry. So going to a conference is a bit like research. You'll certainly learn from people, and you'll have great insight and great takeaways, but you'll need to continue to build upon that information and practice it after the conference ends. If everyone talked about something specific in the conference, you'll need to then learn that information on your own if you've identified that as a key skill. So like a professional development workshop, there is a cost to attending conferences. Many have student discounts or the option to offset part of the attendee costs if you volunteer. And volunteering in itself has its own benefits because you're building soft skills from some of the duties that you'd be carrying out as a volunteer. So we have an entire webinar dedicated to the topic of finding a coach or mentor, but this is another excellent way to develop skills. A career coach helps you to define your goals. They help you to define the existing set of goals that you currently have, your strengths, and also, of course, your weaknesses. The coach creates a development strategy, and they'll provide their clients with a clear pathway to improve the necessary skills that they need to improve. And when you're on your way to implementing this strategy, the trainer or your career coach, they'll support you and they'll provide some actionable feedback. There are paid career coaches to provide the service for a cost, and then there's also natural mentorships that might just organically develop, perhaps with the professor or with someone that you're working with or you just admire, and maybe they're a few steps ahead of you in their career. So you won't get the same exacting advice from a non-professional career coach, but it can be really helpful to gain feedback on your skill development from someone who knows you and they know your industry and they know your network. And a great place to start developing the latter, so that informal mentor, is the Career Center at your university. They can provide feedback to you, they can connect you with alumni and other industry professionals. The hardest part usually isn't identifying a great mentor, but connecting with them, and the Career Center can help make that connection. That's where your network really comes into play. your professors, your classmates, family, and friends. They can introduce you to someone they know who can provide advice via informational interviews. You can meet those who've been in your shoes. The informational interviews are an excellent place to start with potential mentor relationships. Again, we have a webinar on this that will be coming up. All of these sessions really tie together well, and we'll talk more in depth about informational interviews, mentorship. But just like any relationship, this happens slowly and naturally. You can't just approach industry leaders and start demanding feedback on your skill development. You'll have to work your way into their network and build up that comfort level with them. Gaining skills through mentorship is an excellent long-term strategy, but it's not the best approach if you need to enhance your conflict resolution skills or your computer programming skills in a short period of time. This is a long-term approach. This is more skill development over the course of a lifetime. So if you need a certain level of skills, if you need to be intermediate in English by the summer, a mentorship isn't necessarily the best approach for that type of skill development. So the last tip for developing skills is through volunteer work. I touched on this a little bit back on the conference slide. The catch-22 of so many internships is that you need a certain level of experience to get an internship, and if you don't have the experience, you can't get the internship, but you want internship to get the experience. So there are other ways to develop your skills in a hands-on way. If you can't get paid training, the best way to alternately accumulate skills is by just showing up and volunteering. Oftentimes, job shadowing of a position will result in transferable skills for a future internship. It's something you can still put on your resume even if you're not getting paid for it. And remember that transferable skills are wide-ranging, so these opportunities can be wide-ranging as well. Volunteer work could be related to a company related to your ultimate internship target, or it could be for a local charity or for a nonprofit. If you're looking for a public relations internship, communication or writing experience for a local nonprofit is an excellent way to hone some of those skills related to PR in a field maybe not related to PR. You could also volunteer on campus. You could assist faculty members with research work. And this route might have a twofold advantage because you not only gain in-demand skills, but you can build that mentor relationship and maybe have a reference in the future when you start applying for internships. Volunteering is also usually associated with time and energy spent outside of your current network, but it's really just donating extra time that you have. And you can do this without leaving your current organization. Think about volunteering at work for a new project or a new initiative that might be taking place. Maybe this will require a little bit of extra effort, or maybe they need someone to take on a leadership role, and that is volunteer work. Think about volunteering in a group or a club on campus and taking a leadership role there too. Maybe that's outside of your social circle and can help build up your resume and build up your skill set. There are opportunities to build many various skills through different volunteer opportunities. My advice, though, is to be intentional about using your time. You don't want to simply volunteer for everything that comes up. Consider how these opportunities might help you in the long run. I think the time investment versus the expected skill outcome is an important thing to weigh. You might want to donate time and energy for altruistic reasons, which is excellent, but not all volunteer opportunities have to be transactional for skills and time. However, if you are volunteering with the intent to learn something specific, make sure there is a fair skill compensation for the time that you dedicate to the company or the time you dedicate to the project. And this is something we talk about with all interns who come to the United States, but especially those who come to pursue unpaid internships. It's worth noting here as well too, if you're doing something without any compensation monetarily, make sure that there's a skill compensation that you feel is fair and gets you to the level where you want to be at the end of that volunteer opportunity. So we're going to wrap up on the next few slides and start talking about how to dedicate time to learning these skills, some key takeaways, things like that. So I want to start focusing on, we've talked about these 6 different areas, and now what do we do if we find that podcasts or workshops are where we want to focus on our skill development? Just like you should continue to learn hard skills that apply to your studies, you should also try and make steady progress on any in-demand skills outside of your studies. Build this time into your schedule, whether it's 15, 30 minutes a day. make sure you have time to deliberately practice to reach your desired level of skill competency. You want to make sure that you're learning and applying these skills, and this is crucial if you're practicing the skills on your own. I can't stress enough how important intentionality is for developing in-demand skills, especially soft skills. To that point, if you are attempting to develop skills on your own at home, practice in a way that you would if you were studying for a university course. Prioritize the time, let your roommates or your family know not to bother you while you're practicing, or don't let them convince you to watch an episode of the latest TV show. You're prioritizing this time because you have identified a skill that's important to you, and make sure you treat it that way. Keep distractions like your cell phone away, monitor your progress, test yourself. The time investment trade-off for skills, especially hard skills, is important to be wary of. Spending hours learning coding language for blockchain might not be useful if you wind up in fashion merchandising and never use that skill. So just like with volunteer work, protect your time and use it wisely, and make sure that you know why it's important to learn the skill and do the research and make a plan before you just dive into trying to develop new skills. And lastly, set goals. The amount of time that you want to dedicate to a skill, maybe a timeline that you have to achieve the skill, any benchmarks that you decide that you want to reach on the way. So for example, maybe you want to be intermediate in English by the summer, but your goal for the first week is simply to count to 20. Set goals along the way so you can monitor how much progress you're making as you progress. So practice. No matter what skill you want to improve, you can put your newfound knowledge to use with practice. For maximum practice efficiency, there's a few important components. The first is to repeat. Try a technique that challenges your current level of understanding and then repeat that technique often. For example, experiment with a new communication technique you learn each week, but then also go back and practice the previous techniques that you've used in the past at least maybe once a week, so that you don't let those skills rust and that you ensure that you've mastered those skills. The second, stay interested. Don't burn yourself out. There's a reason that you have decided that you're motivated to learn this skill. So mixing things up, keep yourself engaged, keep yourself interested, and be kind to yourself. If you do need to take a break, make sure you take a break when you need it. The third tip is to be purposeful. So to practice in a way that relates to your weak skills. Put yourself in real situations to practice. If you are struggling with public speaking, practice speeches to groups of friends rather than just rehearsing on your own in front of a mirror. The best way to maximize your efforts and energy is to put yourself in an environment that mirrors what you're hoping to achieve. You also can't develop any skill overnight. This practice is an investment that will last years and will happen incrementally. It'll get easier, especially if you continue to challenge yourself. If we go back to the public speaking example, maybe start with a group of 2 or 3 friends and then build on from there. But build your skills incrementally, and if it gets too easy, add a little bit more of a challenge to building your skills. And the last piece of advice is to get feedback. Sometimes we aren't the best judges of what our skills are, and if you're doing a course online, usually you'll get tested and you'll have a score to refer to, but in other cases you might have to go out of your way to get feedback. So try to get someone to review your skills and provide areas for improvement as often as possible. Try and get someone who will be impartial, make sure they'll be honest with you, and keep an open mind about any feedback you get that maybe isn't glowing. It can be hard to get negative feedback and to receive that without just shutting it down. So make sure that the feedback you're getting, if you don't agree with it, you're still taking it to heart and listening and trying to think about how you can continue to improve. So we'll just summarize before we go into question and answers about some key takeaways for today's session. These are the 4 concrete steps to building skills. So if you're looking to build any skills, this is the path I would follow. Prioritize what skills you want to develop. You can't work on everything all at once. So start making a list of your most desired skills, whether they're soft skills or hard skills, and assess which skills you think that you lack and which are most in demand in your field. The skills gap for hard skills probably be easier to determine, like we talked about. For soft skills, it might be a little bit more difficult to discern. An excellent way to determine where you should focus your energy is by talking to who you know and getting some honest feedback. Personality tests like Myers-Briggs are also helpful if you're unsure about your own self-assessment of your skills and your skills gap. But compare the skills that you feel that you lack with the skills that are being asked for in internship postings. Next, find the resources for developing in-demand skills. And you can learn these through intentional study. You can learn this through practice, application, but make sure that you have the specific resources that you need to develop skills. And there are many different ways to do so. So just figure out what works best for you based on your study habits, based on your timeline, and based on your overall goals. Once you decide what you want to focus on, set aside the time to practice, dedicate the time, and carve out a way that you would if it was for your academic studies. And the last step, once you've dedicated the time, once you've figured out that the skill you want to develop, is to continue to practice. Continue each time. I can't stress this enough either, but if you aren't using these skills every day at work, or you're not using them in a real life setting, it can be easy to get rusty fast. So make sure that you are continuing to practice all of these skills, even if you think you've already mastered the skill. So I hope this session was helpful. There's a lot of information, a lot of resources that we threw out at you, and we'll send some of these as a follow-up so you can check out some of these websites and look at some of these resources. We have 8 more sessions coming up in our career guidance series this fall. So next week we'll talk about creating resumes and cover letters. But you can see this list here of all of the webinars that we have coming up every Tuesday at this time. So we hope that you'll join us again in the future. But with that, I want to share our contact information and then go through any additional questions that we've had. We still have about 5 more minutes left of the presentation, so we have some time to answer any questions that have come up so far.
So there is one question that came in. The question is it hard to find a company who is willing to hire a student without work experience?
So that goes back to that catch-22 that I talked about, where sometimes companies want interns with a certain level of experience, but an internship is typically to help you gain experience. So it can be hard to find a company who is willing to hire someone without any experience. And that's why I think it's important to think outside the box about what experience you do have. Maybe you don't have experience in the world of work, but you have leadership experience from student groups and clubs that you've been part of, or maybe you have related skills experience from the coursework that you've taken. So think about the experience that you do have, but if you don't have work experience, you're going to want to bolster your application by building up some skills in other ways, by completing certificate programs or having mastery over programs that the company will use, whether it's C++ or JavaScript or something like that. So if you don't have work experience, that's okay, but you do want to have some experience that you can showcase to a host employer.
Great, thank you for that response. So far, it doesn't seem as if we have any additional questions being asked. So I think that might be the end of this presentation. If there's anything else you want to cover, if there's anyone else who wants to input another question, we'd be happy to, Tamara will be happy to help you with that response.
I talked a lot over the last hour, so I know that I covered a lot of information. We will send all of this as a follow-up resource. If so you have all of these lists of podcasts, these lists of professional development series that you can check out. But yeah, I feel like it's a lot to process. And if you do have questions, this is our information below, and we are happy to help answer any questions in the future. But thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you next Tuesday. Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.